welcome back to my channel. My name is Liana. Today I have a concealer roundup for you because I have been on a quest to replace my Kat Von D concealer. This is my second one in the L1 neutral shade, which is the lightest skin tone shade. I also have one in the whiteout shade, and I've been using this since January of 2017. Obviously, if you've watched some of my more recent videos, you'll know I'm no longer supporting her and her brand, but it was a struggle for me to try and find a replacement for this. This is the only product that I've repurchased from her specifically because there haven't been a lot of really pale concealers up until more recently. Now we have options if you're very pale like I am. And so I have 3 different concealers here. I have 2 liquids and a stick, and I'm going to kind of go over each one with you. So just a little background on my skin. I have normal skin, but I have normal to dry under eyes. I'm 29 years old, so I do have some fine lines that I get kind of right underneath the eyes. I don't have crow's feet by any means, but I smile a lot, I laugh a lot throughout the day, and due to my health issues, I get quite tired, and sort of as the day goes on, those lines become more prominent, and I can get some creasing here and there. My right lower eyelid also has a small scar from when I had stitches in my face. I had stitches down my cheek, and I also had 2 in the very lower eyelid. So I have sort of some pinched skin there. Concealer can either help cover that up, or it can accentuate that area. So depending on the formula, it can be a positive or negative experience. I have very dark circles and veining under the eye as well as on the eyelid. So when it comes to a concealer, I'm looking to find something that can cover that up without color corrector, preferably. If I have to use color corrector, then I need something that's going to work well with that product. I have a muted neutral skin tone, as I've sort of figured out. That means that my skin is not very saturated at all. A lot of things can look too bright on me, too pigmented. And I'm also, obviously, looking at me, I'm very fair complected. My face has a little bit more pigmentation and pinkness to it than the rest of my body, which is more neutral. So I can kind of get away with wearing something that's slightly darker and slightly more cool toned on my face because I don't wear foundation every single day. Sometimes I just wear concealer. Like today, for example, I'm just wearing concealer under my eyes and a little bit around my face. So, but if I'm wearing a foundation that perfectly matches my neck and my chest, that's going to be a muted neutral tone, and therefore if something is too dark, that's going to be noticeable, and if it's too pink or too yellow, again, that's going to be noticeable. So as for the testing process, what I did for each one, I went into it barefaced. I wasn't wearing foundation for any of the tests, and I conducted 3 tests with each. The first test I did with each of the concealers was the concealer worn on its own on one side and set with the Annabelle Perfect Matte Powder on the other side. The second test I conducted over the Pixie Correction Concentrate in Brightening Peach, which is the color corrector of choice lately. And the third test that I conducted was side by side with the Kat Von D Lock-It Concealer, and each side I set with powder just because that is typical for me to do. I wanted to make that fair. For each concealer, I did attempt to show you what it would look like blended with both a sponge, a brush, and even fingertips. So depending on your preference, you could see how that goes. And each one kind of, oh my god, shut up. I'm looking at a tablet right now and there's so many notifications. It's like, go away. I'm trying to talk. So anyway, for each concealer, there was a different method that worked better than the other. One concealer worked best with a dip sponge, one worked best with fingertips, and one worked best with a brush. So for each concealer, I'm going to start by telling you a little bit of background information on each one, and then I'll start splicing footage of the application process that I did for each of the concealers while I'm still talking to you. If by any chance I'm still talking and there's no more footage to show you, well then you'll get to look at me instead right now. Afterwards, I'm going to come here at the very end and just talk to you about my final thoughts on all three concealers, which one I like the best, which one I like the least. And also I'm going to show you swatches on my hand as well as on my face for comparison. So the first one I have here is the Nudestix concealer, which comes in pencil form. All Nudestix products come in these metal boxes with their own little sharpener, and the lid has a mirror on the inside. So you pop off the top, and it is the type of pencil that you have to sharpen, so I do worry about, you know, how much product is going to get eaten by the sharpener and therefore be unusable product. This is the only stick concealer that I tried out of the three. Of course, for all three of them, I have the lightest shade, so this is light 1. This has the most limited shade range of the three as well. There are only 8 different shades. Yeah. The thing about Canada that not a lot of people realize is that Canadian brands don't have very good shade ranges. I think a lot of people outside of Canada see MAC and Cover Effects and see how great their shade ranges are and think that Canadian brands must be very diverse, and they're not. And I'm probably going to be doing a video about that at some point because Canadian brands suck for shade range. Anyway, this concealer is $28 for 0.05 ounces or 1.4 grams of product. But again, I don't know how much of that is actually usable because you need to sharpen it. If it had been a twist up, I think that would have been a lot better. It's meant to have medium buildable coverage with a matte finish, and it's supposed to be very, very blendable with moisturizing ingredients. It's free from parabens, sulfates, phthalates, and is cruelty-free. So in terms of application, I was a little worried at first because this is a stick concealer. The last time I used a stick concealer was probably in early to mid-20s. I used to use the CoverGirl Smoothers concealer in the highlighting shade. It wasn't even a skin tone shade. It was the lightest thing I could find. And anyway, a lot of stick concealers tend to be dry and drag across the skin, but quite the opposite. This is very creamy and highly emollient. Because of this, I find that it creases very easily under the eyes. I get a lot of transfer from my eye makeup underneath the eyes as well due to that. It also doesn't work very well as an eyeshadow base even when set due to its texture. I find that it does require a lot of product to reach my desired coverage. It's not just a dab on and go product, which is unfortunate because the whole idea behind Nudestix is that you can just grab it and go. Using a damp sponge is definitely useless for this type of product, so you're better off with fingers or a brush, which will work about equally, but I do find that fingers give you slightly more coverage than the brush. In terms of color, this is by far the darkest and pinkest of the three. The shade blends out fine on its own under my eyes, though it does have a noticeably pink cast when used on top of blemishes. Additionally, when used over a color corrector, I find I have to blend further down my face to prevent the concealer from looking too dark and too pink. This color looks noticeable if I'm wearing a foundation that matches my neck and my chest. In conclusion, this concealer is best used as a spot concealer on the rest of the face rather than an under eye concealer due to its texture. Additionally, it would work best on those with a very cool pink undertone. Next is the Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define Concealer. This comes in 25 shades, including a pure white, which I do also have. I haven't tried the white one yet just because I do still have the whiteout shade from Kat Von D open. I feel like I don't need 2 white shades open at once. So I've been using the lightest skin tone shade, which is C0.5. My friend Camille was kind enough to send me this and the white shade, so I did not pay for these myself. So C0.5, again, it's the lightest of the skin tone shades, and it's meant for very fair skin with pink undertones. It's roughly $9 Canadian for 0.14 ounces, although on the website it says that it's 0.11 ounces, so I'm not sure which to believe, to be quite honest. The cheapest cost plus shipping is $17.94 Canadian. Do note that they are going to be coming out with a jumbo size of this soon, which is going to be 0.45 ounces, so almost half an ounce. And it's going to be $10 US, so it's not going to cost too much more than what it does right now. So this is described as a lightweight but full coverage concealer that can cover blemishes, dark circles, uneven skin tone, with a long wearing matte finish that won't accentuate fine lines or skin texture, pores. You can apply it using a few dots and use a synthetic brush or a damp blending sponge, building up if necessary. This concealer is vegan and cruelty-free. So the concealer has a very large doe foot applicator which houses an equally large amount of product. I did find myself having to wipe off some of the excess on the edge of the tube before I dotted it on my face, just because there was so much product there. I didn't need all of that. The consistency is very creamy. It's almost moussey. It blends out very well regardless of whether I used sponge, brush, or fingertips. I didn't find that it was drying or appeared overly matte. It does start to dry down to a matte finish, but the initial finish is actually quite dewy. It also doesn't crease too much, even with a powder, or even without a powder. It provided a nice amount of coverage and layered well if I wanted to use more. The shade is an ultra light pink, lighter than the Nudestix concealer. I don't have any troubles wearing this on its own or over a color corrector. It doesn't even look that out of place when I'm wearing a foundation that's less pink than this. Probably because it is just so darn light. Conclusion, although this is still a little bit on the pink side for my tastes, this concealer applies easily and stays on well throughout the day. The biggest downfall is how little product is in the tube, but they do appear to be correcting that. Lastly, we have the Colourpop No Filter Matte Concealer. This comes in 30 shades, including a white, again. I don't have the white shade for this. I have the shade Fair 02, which is the lightest skin tone shade. It's meant for fair skin tones with a neutral, cool undertone. The price is $7.75 Canadian for 0.14 ounces, which would make that the same as the Makeup Revolution concealer. Again, they're saying something different on the website. I just realized it says 0.14 ounces online. Here it says 0.176. I don't know. If you ask me though, it looks like there's less in the Colourpop than in the Makeup Revolution. This came to me looking half empty. So, put it to you that way. The lowest total cost plus shipping rate comes to $20.66 Canadian. That's how much I paid from the Colourpop website, and it took about a week to get here. I didn't pay customs. This is described as a long-wearing, full-coverage, natural matte concealer. It has a lightweight, blendable formula that applies smoothly and seamlessly to cover dark circles, redness, blemishes, and discoloration in one swipe. It's made with soft focus blurring technology to deliver a flawless finish that lasts all day. You can blend it with a brush, sponge, or fingertips, and again, it is also vegan and cruelty-free. So the wand on this concealer is a very flexible flat doe foot. Because of the shape, it can hold product on each side of the wand, but it doesn't carry an overabundance, unlike the Makeup Revolution concealer. This thing is a struggle to apply. I find that it just doesn't want to blend out properly like most concealers do. I honestly haven't had this much trouble with a concealer in a very long time. It tends to lift as I'm blending it out. So I'll go in and start blending it with my damp sponge, and instead of blending it into the skin, it lifts away from the skin, leaving gaps where there's no longer any product. And this happens with fingertips as well, and the only time it doesn't seem to occur is with a brush, but I find that when I use the brush, I get flaking. The formula is as such that it dries incredibly fast to a powder finish. It's self-setting. I liken it to a liquid chalk. Have you ever had liquid Maalox, the type of stuff that you drink for your stomach? It's a lot like that. It leaves my skin with tiny little dried up flakes of product. The flaking I'm talking about with the brush, that's not my skin. It's the product clinging to my skin in tiny little flakes and clumps. Because it's self-setting, I don't find that this requires any powder, but this isn't going to do you any favors if you have dry skin or even normal skin. This color is extremely pale. When I first opened up my package, I actually thought that I had made a mistake. I thought maybe I'd ordered the white instead of Fair 02. I thought this was going to be way too pale for me. I looked at it and I was concerned. For some reason, even though its swatch is about the same shade depth as the Kat Von D concealer, maybe the tiniest bit more cool toned, and the Kat Von D concealer I can wear on its own, the Colourpop one looks ashy on me. It looks slightly gray, particularly under my eyes unless I color correct first or mix it with a different concealer. I can get away with using a small amount on spots. I have done so today, but I think this color really would work best if I'm wearing a full face of foundation. Conclusion, this is a very strange formula that doesn't work well on me. The shade is extremely fair, but it leaves an almost ashy gray, sickly tone to my skin, and the container is already half empty when you get it, so there's not a lot of product. So, of the three concealers, I would rank them as such. Makeup Revolution, number 1. Nudestix, number 2. And Colourpop, way behind at number 3. I really don't struggle very much at all to use the Makeup Revolution concealer. It doesn't crease on me. I mean, my lines become more prominent throughout the day no matter what. But the product is not gathering in creases. There's a difference. It's not a very drying concealer. It works well on spots as well as under the eyes. The shade is kind of pink, but it's not to the point where it looks weird. You know, some pink shades look almost orange on me. This isn't one of them. It is extremely pale. The one thing I will note though is that I have seen this swatched on some of the Reddit communities, and this same shade did appear to oxidize quite a bit on other people. This does not oxidize on me. So just because it doesn't oxidize on me doesn't mean it will not oxidize on you. The Nudestix concealer, very, very emollient. So I can't really wear it under my eyes unless I heavy duty set it, you know? And even then, I just find it looks a little bit crinkly by the end of the day. Might be better if your eyes are even more dry than mine are, and maybe have a few less expression lines. Maybe you're younger than me. This is like made by a 19-year-old, like 17, 18, 19-year-old. So she's probably thinking of her own demographic when she made this. But on spots, I think that it's quite good because it does stick onto the area more easily. You know, some liquid concealers can be hard to cover spots, but a stick concealer kind of like just sticks onto it. And this, like I said, it's like liquid chalk, liquid Maalox, barium swallow. Have you ever had to go for one of those GI tests on your stomach and they make you drink that weird liquid? It's like that. Leave it on your hand for 60 seconds. It's already dried. It's like that. I don't like it. I don't like it. I have to mix it if I'm going to even attempt to make it work. And even then, it makes the other concealer dry more quickly as well. It just changes the formula of whatever it's near. So, yeah, I have to be very careful with it. So now I'm going to do some swatches. So the big swatch underneath is the Kat Von D concealer. The swatch over here is the Colourpop concealer in Fair 02. The swatch in the center is the Makeup Revolution concealer in 0.5. And then the swatch over here is the Nudestix concealer in Light 1, which you can tell is the darkest of all of them. These two are definitely the closest in terms of tone, but the Makeup Revolution is the same shade depth as these three, or as these two. It's just a lot pinker. So I'm going to swatch. This is the Nudestix. This is Makeup Revolution. This is Colourpop. And this is Kat Von D. Now I'm going to blend each of them in with this brush. Of course, I'm wearing like blush right above that, so you'll kind of have to disregard. So the two pink ones actually like match my face a lot better. And then these two over here match my neck better, but the Colourpop one, I don't know, I just don't like it. Again, and the colors are kind of thrown off because I have this huge patch of blush right above there, but... So those are the three concealers I've tried. I have heard that the new Milk Makeup Flex Concealer Shade Extension includes a shade that's just as light as the Too Faced Born This Way foundation in the shade Cloud, which does work for me. So that's another one to consider. There's also the Kylie Cosmetics concealer in the lightest shade, but I don't buy from her, so I couldn't test that for you. Those are all of concealers that I know of right now. If you have any other fair concealers that you know of, feel free to drop them down below. Preferably if they have a nice wide shade range, that would be great. I hope you enjoyed this video. I post Mondays and Fridays here on this channel in the afternoon Eastern time. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye guys!